David Pagnotta from the fourth period joins us. There's a whole lot of talk about Seth Jones. I called the Psychic Friends Network to try and find out from Dionne Warwick what's going on. Still waiting for a call back, so I'm glad we've got you on. Jackets exploring all avenues. There's plenty of interest in Seth Jones. What's the latest on his situation that you're hearing?
Yeah, Tony, no pressure, by the way. Thank you for that. But, this is a situation that's starting to evolve a little bit more towards what they hope to be a finish line, in that Jones's camp has been given permission to speak to other teams. So not only is Jarmo Kekalainen, Columbus's general manager, now out there trying to make a trade happen, he's got a little bit of assistance in terms of Jones's camp being able to help perhaps expedite a deal, or at least facilitate one. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean or guarantee that a contract extension will be in place. The only thing that's guaranteed from that perspective is that Jones has made it clear to Columbus that he will not sign an extension with the club. But being able to have permission to speak to other teams about what a contract extension may look like could help speed things up and maximize the return for the Columbus Blue Jackets for whichever team is out there, whether it's, the Colorado Avalanche, Chicago Blackhawks, Dallas Stars, a few other teams that are in the mix. This is a player that teams certainly like, and having the agents now involved could speed things up towards that finish line that, Columbus is looking for.
David, this next topic, I swear, when I got the email, I read it twice. Steven Stamkos, two-time Stanley Cup champion, back-to-back, the captain. The previous year, that dramatic goal, 3 minutes in the whole series, but we'll all remember that play. Then this year, is his future in Tampa Bay really, possibly, perhaps not going to be long? Could he end up residing somewhere else? Are you serious?
It's a possibility, no stretch of guarantee, but this is something similar to what happened last offseason, where Tampa made it known that they're not moving their key guys, Point, Kucherov, Hedman, or Vasilevsky, but Stamkos is a player that they will listen on. I'm of the understanding that that is the case again now that we've hit this offseason. He's got an $8.5 million cap hit. There's a lot of moves that need to be made here and a lot of tinkering to keep the bulk of this core intact in Tampa. And it's not just Tyler Johnson. Everybody's pointing to Tyler Johnson being the culprit. He might end up in Seattle. But Steven Stamkos is a guy, they're going to have to move more money than just Johnson's $5 million. He's a player that teams have expressed interest in the past. And my understanding is those conversations will resume again this offseason. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're absolutely set on moving Steven Stamkos, because he has a full no trade and can dictate where this ends up. But there was a conversation with his camp last offseason. There's going to be another one here if it hasn't happened already. And those discussions will carry out throughout the month.
I could never be Julien Brisebois. Just coming off a championship, the idea that you have to make moves, but that's the nature of hockey in the salary cap era. The Kings made their first big move, acquiring Victor Arvidsson from Nashville. What else might be on the table for Los Angeles in the coming months?
Yeah, Rob Blake is pretty active out there, their general manager, wanting to add more to the roster. Now, they're not just set on just having Victor Arvidsson added to the mix. They want to bring in another top six winger to add to their core of what they have in place in Los Angeles, as well as help on the back end. They'd love to be able to bring in somebody on that D-core that can play on the left side as a veteran young presence, but could perhaps gel with Drew Doughty. Los Angeles isn't done. I don't necessarily know if they're going to get both of these acquisitions made this offseason, but they've definitely made it known that they want to address those two areas of the club, and those are priorities for them. Now, if it doesn't work from a trade perspective, they'll fish around the free agent market, but they're certainly not done by any stretch from that side of things. It wouldn't shock me, based on some of the names that are out there, if a player like Tyler Bertuzzi becomes available for LA. He's a player Detroit's listening on, and LA has some very good young pieces that they're willing to move to bring in young caliber star talent in return. He's somebody that I wouldn't be shocked LA is poking around on.
A 37-year-old won the Vezina Trophy this year, Marc-Andre Fleury. Pause. The Oilers recently offered Mike Smith, who is not 30, he's 39 years old.
39, yeah.
Short-term deal, also looking at possible trade targets. Grant Fuhr's not walking through that door. Who could Edmonton be looking at? Potentially Andy Moog.
Yeah, well, Curtis Joseph isn't available either. But they're looking around and seeing what they have out there. Now, my understanding is that last week Edmonton tabled Mike Smith a 2-year contract offer. It still needs a little bit of tinkering. They're not there yet, and they're going back and forth. I believe they had a discussion on Friday again, and that'll carry out into this week to see if they can get that done. But Edmonton's certainly busy, obviously, today, but are also looking at other options in terms of goaltending. Now, Mikko Koskinen is likely to be bought out. That decision, to my understanding, isn't finalized yet, but all indications are that they're going in that direction. And them looking, Kenny Holland is also out there looking for another goaltender via the trade market. It doesn't necessarily mean that's to replace Smith if they don't sign him, but to solidify the goaltending position in general. They'd like to get Smith locked up. They'd like to get him in there. Money's not exactly where it needs to be just yet from his side of things. They'll try to work on that as Kenny Holland simultaneously tries to add another goaltender via the trade market. I'm curious if it's a short-term guy like a Darcy Kemper with 1 year left on his deal, or if they're looking at some younger options. Jonas Korpisalo out of Columbus also available.
Your information is always outstanding, and I'm always fascinated by the piece of technology over your shoulder.
Yes.
Whether it's
That's
a
right.
printer, fax machine, I don't know. What I know is you're always great on the show. Thank you, David.
You got it. Thanks, Tony.